Hello, everybody. Good to see you back again. This is episode 5.
We think.
Of More Wild Talk. We never expected that we would make it this far without being cut, but we have. And just to let you know, I know we've got a lot of folks here from this congregation who've joined on. We are going to start back worshiping here at the building on June the 7th. So you can make those plans now. There will be restrictions. We're only going to have worship that morning, no Bible classes at this time until really we're able to see a little bit more of what this thing's going to do. Also want to make mention as people are gathering on, tomorrow morning I do a thing Monday through Friday. I call it Prayer and a Psalm. I just kind of started doing it that way, just to read a psalm and have a prayer if anybody had any prayer requests. And, you know, it's really turned out, we've had some good responses. So last week I started a new thing called Finale Friday. And I do an interview, and it went really well with Dale Jenkins. Dale Jenkins was great. This week, tomorrow at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to have Keith Lancaster. He's coming on with me. I'm going to do an interview with him. We're going to talk about a lot of great things, and looking forward to that. And actually, I've got a couple other people that are booked that I am really excited about as well. So these are all good.
Friday is something to look forward to.
Friday is something to look forward to. Yes. So join us if you would like. Maybe you have a question for Keith. You can certainly put those in the comments tomorrow, and I can throw those in there. But we got to get to some baseball news, Joe. Our Korean baseball team that you chose for us.
The Wirens.
SK Wirens. Would you please tell everybody how they're doing in the standings?
Well, we're going to throw the standings up there. They came in first place last year, so obviously we jump on the bandwagon, right?
Yes, evidently we do.
Okay, well, they're not in first place this year. But there's only been 8 games. So it's
So
early.
Where exactly are we in the standings, Joe?
We are last.
This is the team he chose for us.
Now the good news is we have the top home run hitter in the first 8 games on the team.
Yes, in fact, Joe, if you don't mind, since you did this to me last week, if you will read off this player of ours and tell us what his batting average is, home run and RBI total, that would be fantastic.
It's always better if you're trying to pronounce it.
No, it's not.
In any event, his name is, I got to be careful on this one. So I get it right. Han Dong-min. He's batting .333. He's got 4 homers, 10 RBIs. 4 homers in 8 games for a regular MLB schedule. That comes out to about 81 home runs for a season.
Yes.
We'll keep an eye on him, and I'm sure they're going to turn it around for us.
Well, the Korean League is about all we have right now, and I don't know if we'll ever get baseball. It sounds like they're arguing over money and things like that. But
that may be coming, may not, but you can catch the Korean baseball usually in the morning.
Yes, Korean baseball.
ESPN.
So, Joe, I see you've got on a special shirt.
Well, I got to get up above.
Yes, LG Livingston Gun Dogs. And this is our sponsor for tonight. This is the Atlantic Division up in Georgia. And so they are providing for us dogs to guard the building at all times. Is that right?
That's something like that.
Something like that. Okay, very good.
But we appreciate the sponsorship.
Yes, we love the sponsorships, whether they know they're our sponsors or not.
Right,
so
right.
That's perfect. All right, Joe. Well, listen, are you ready to get into some discussion here?
Let's talk about it.
All right.
Let's talk about some stuff, some changes that we all know there's going to be changes, I think.
Yes.
And we know there's going to be short-term changes and maybe long-term changes. So just kind of, discussing that with some speculation, we want to start first with church stuff and what we think may be changing. I looked at a poll real quickly before I came over here that just came out, nationwide poll of Christians. 35% said their faith is stronger coming through this. 2% said their faith is weaker, and 58% basically said, really not much of a change. I'm just who I am. So we're kind of looking at that.
So why do you think, you see such high numbers for this has been a positive for their spiritual life?
Yeah. Well, I think, when you have a chance to, I think we always talk about the fact that, we need to slow down. We need to take some time, have some quiet time, sit quietly somewhere or read the scripture, pray, and meditate in that way. And I think we're kind of being given that to us and forced on us almost. And maybe we're figuring out, some of this stuff is stuff we should be doing all the time.
Right.
And so you have that faith is stronger kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are some other changes you think though may be coming when we come out of this, as far as our church group is concerned, our church family is concerned, even our worship practices are concerned?
Well, I think it remains to be seen, because we haven't even gotten back yet in the first phase. I do think, with all the talk about a possibility of a second phase coming through, which may or may not happen, when you hear people say that it's, this is going to be around and this is going to affect us for a long time, I think, one thing that's dear to my heart is singing. I love singing. That's just one of the things I really look forward to, and I know that we have to think about how that works within our structure when we come back and there's still this threat of the virus and possibly infecting some of our people who are the most susceptible to this type of thing. And so I'm actually curious to see what will happen. We'll have to be spaced out for a while. How long will this be long term? I think those are some good questions. What do you think?
Well, one of the things we're looking at, as leaders is, and we're getting information about is, where are the places where transmission is there's a high risk of transmission, and and it's at churches. It's at arenas where there's a sporting event going on or a concert. It's at those kind of events where there's a lot of people, there's people gathering together and there's singing, there's yelling, there's you're rooting on your team, you're doing those kind of things that apparently is part of the transmission process, is that expelling of the breath. And so, what we're going to see immediate changes are just what you're talking about. We're going to come into a worship service and we're going to be spread out. And we're going to come into a worship service, and right now we're intending that people wear masks so that everyone will feel safe in that area. And we're going to do communion differently. Singing is a bad thing, apparently,
Right.
And you see a lot of big outbreaks came from choir practices,
Right.
and where a bunch of people were singing. Now, luckily, we have our praise and harmony videos,
Yes.
so we can sing along with those. We're just going to have to be careful about singing out. So there's going to be some different changes. I don't know why that should have any difference, though, in how we worship our God.
Well, I think to me, that's one of the things that all of this really does. It makes us really rethink. Just to give you a good illustration, I heard years ago that there was a congregation, they were what they called one-cuppers. You know what I'm talking
Right.
about? They believed that, the whole church is to drink out of one cup. And until someone got tuberculosis. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly they were for multiple cups.
Right.
So sometimes these things help us really to kind of really think some things through as to what really is tradition and what really is effective for the body of Christ as well.
Well, that's what I that's one of the nice things. That's one of the good things I think that
Yeah.
comes out of something like this. You can rethink some things. You can say, well, why were we doing it this way?
Right.
And is that a way you have to do it, or is it
Right.
a way, just the way we chose to do it?
Right.
And therefore, when something like this happens, we just have to adjust to that.
Right.
just like Christians have done probably throughout the centuries, adjusting to whatever circumstances they may be in. If they're, if the government's after them, they're not advertising their church building.
Right.
They're hiding out.
Right.
And so, you have to adjust to those circumstances. So it'll be interesting.
Well, what about, here we are. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing here.
Right.
If that weren't for this. What do you think about technology in the church?
Well, I think we're going to find out that there's some things that we can continue to do online that we've discovered. I think one of them is your Friday morning little prayer session. That's something we've discovered that probably everyone's going to enjoy and want to continue it, whether we're meeting in the building or not. Because getting together in the morning together like that is a good thing. Now, whether you want to continue this kind of thing is
well, I see that your daughter-in-law says she hopes we will continue to do this, but she may.
Yeah. Well, we will, Mackenzie. Then just for
Mackenzie,
just
yes.
for Mackenzie. But you're gonna have to look at all those things, and then that's the other thing. Are there going to be people who say, "Man, I like that online stuff, and I don't need to come back to the building. I'm just gonna watch it online, and that's good for me."
Which reminds me, watch the sermon on Sunday about belong and community and why it is important.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: do you think that, as bad as this thing has been, that with the technology and the things that we're doing, that this is maybe an area we should have been tapping into, that we're learning about now, because kind of we're having to, that we see that we're able maybe to have a further reach?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that goes two ways. If we were meeting in the building, maybe nobody wants to watch this.
Right.
We're not meeting in the building, and people want to make some kind of connection, even though they can't gather together. But you make some kind of connection. So I want to get up and I want to watch Clay on Tuesday. I want to check in on every morning to see how what the prayers are about, and I want to get on tonight and see what kind of mess we'll talk about.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
All right. Well, let's move a little bit past church here. In fact, let's talk about what normally happens on a Sunday morning after we leave. We go to restaurants, right?
Yes.
So shopping and restaurants, we've now opened back up at least 25% capacity in these places. How do you see these changes continuing on, and maybe even our future?
Well, I know Glenda, my wife does not want to go out to a restaurant right now. So I think there's a lot of people that are in that situation. In fact, we kind of saw, in some of our surveys, some people just are not ready to get out and around people yet because they don't feel safe yet.
Right.
As far as that's concerned, they're not sure about the other folks that are around them.
Right.
And so, going out shopping, going into a restaurant, going out into that area is something that people may not do, even though, the restrictions are lifted.
Right.
And so, we're going to have that problem. And then, of course, you hear about the fact that some of the workers who have been furloughed are not ready to come back.
Right.
And so, who's going to mind the store, so to speak.
Right.
Survey on that is interesting because 79% of furloughed workers indicated they're not ready to come back yet. So, and that's a higher percentage than the general population. So those folks who are furloughed off and don't have a job and are not working,
right,
they're concerned about coming back. And of course, they're probably in a more of an at-risk thing than I would be just going to eat there. They're there the whole day. Right. Around people, right. As far as that's concerned, and they're concerned about it, and they're maybe scared of contracting the disease and being on that what we would call the front line now.
Right.
So that might be tough for restaurants and retail stores to go back to full strength anyway.
Right.
Some of it is the unemployment they get, and they're actually getting a little bit more than what they would if they were working.
Yeah, I know a couple of people, that's their situation.
But if the free market works right, then the store's got to pay them a little more and get them back. That's how it works.
There you go. So, folks,
you want to start doing it, you got to pay a little more.
If that's you, you go tell them Joe Wild said you need more money, right?
But I would think too that a lot of people maybe are finding out that, you know, something, it's not too bad to cook dinner at home.
We've traditionally always done that. Of course, I have a great cook.
Yeah.
At my house.
I can tell.
That's what I'm saying. I am a perfect example of that. So when we go out, you know, it's not very often. We have tried to use some of our community restaurants that have been open, just kind of help them this time, you know, with things going on. But traditionally we've eaten a lot. We eat a lot of meals at the house. We like that. So
and you know, you have a good cook.
Yeah.
But I think there are some people finding out that, hey, you know something, this isn't that hard to cook a meal.
Right.
You know, as far as probably can't put something together like Missy.
Yeah. Well.
But can make a simple meal and make it work and enjoy sitting at home and eating it together with the family. I think some people are going to find that out, and maybe there's not going to be as many people going out to eat anyway.
Right. Right.
Because they rediscover that family meal at home.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about something that I really have been missing: travel. And you know, that is, you know, just travel, leisure activities. But you know, this is something, normally I've had a vacation by now, but it's one of those things like, well, where do you go? And you know, if you're going to go somewhere, do you I mean, are people wanting to stay in hotels and places?
Let me ask you. All right, everything's kind of opening up, and we're getting to the end of June. Would you get in a plane and fly somewhere?
That, you know, I think I would have to see how many people are flying. Mm-hmm. If I see that it's spaced out pretty well, you know, and they're cleaning these things, which that's what they tell you anyway. I would probably get in a plane in that situation, but I just don't know how many people are getting on a plane.
Right.
I wouldn't want to be on a compact plane with a full house.
Yeah. Well, so really, what you're saying is, if it's not back to normal, if it's back to normal where everyone's flying, I'm not going. If it's not back to normal, I may get on a plane if there's no one else on there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think there's a lot of people like that. They're a little leery about getting around and getting stuck in a plane, a train, a bus,
right,
and a subway car or whatever. A little concerned about that. And
yeah. Cruise ship.
Well, I think New York City cruise ship, yeah, and I think New York City had, you know, that was one of their issues that you know, most people are using public transportation and they don't have any other way to get to work, and
right.
And then the thing is transmitted, and you know, and we kind of talked before about other leisure activities. We're obviously not going to go see a Major League Baseball game,
right,
at least in person.
Right.
We're not going to go to a concert, at least in person.
Right.
All those kind of things are out the window, kind of thing, as far as leisure activities concerned. Now, what's the positive?
Right.
Maybe everybody's going to figure out, hey, I can go walk on the beach. I can get out in the park. I can get my kayak and go down the river. I can do those kind of things and maybe you know, enjoy God's creation a little more with the leisure activities. But it's really going to be interesting because, you know, that's really big business.
It is big business.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in Florida. I mean, that's big business in Florida.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, those things they're interesting. Well, what about offices, businesses, medical services? What are your thoughts getting? I mean, right now I have a back doctor, and so far my appointments have been on my phone. So what are you seeing?
Well, I think we're gonna. I think we're seeing already, but I think that'll continue with what they call the teledoc.
Yes.
Yes. That kind of situation. I think you're going to see more people working from home because they're going to figure out, I don't need to go to the office. I can do everything at home,
right,
just as well as I can do it at the office. So why go to the office? Are we going to see Are we going to see? Well, there's some jobs you can't do that. You can't, obviously, a waiter or a waitress is not going to work from home.
Right.
You're going to have to go in.
Right.
But there are going to be a lot of things. I read an article where, some CEO of a company said, I used to fly around and get to meetings with people to just talk about the business. He goes, I don't need to fly around. I can just do a Zoom meeting, save money for the not pay that. Okay, well, that means less people flying. Airlines
Right.
are making less money. It's all kind of linked together, and how it all shakes out will be interesting. I was talking to one local businessman today, and he was talking about some of his receptionists. He's got 3 receptionists that don't want to come into work because they're afraid about this getting sick. So what do you do? What do you do in that situation where they don't want to come in because of the sickness? You probably don't feel right in saying, okay, then you're fired.
Right.
But so what? How do you proceed on that? And there's probably going to be a lot of that where I don't really want to come in, in that particular situation. And I think the medical services will definitely go more to the teledoctoring,
Right.
which it probably should have done in the things that probably should have been happening anyway will probably happen.
Right.
Kind of like you're talking about with the church stuff and the online stuff, things that we probably should have been doing,
Right.
we'll continue to do.
Right.
We'll continue to do, I think.
Well, here's the big one, because we both have kids in college. What are you seeing by way of schools and colleges? What do you this fall? Let's just forget about summer school. Let's get to fall. What are you envisioning?
Well, got Trevor and Mackenzie in school, and I've watched them doing online classes since spring break. I don't think they particularly like online classes.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
I don't think they do. Now, if the colleges want to go to online classes, and that's all I got to pay for, I'm all for it.
Right.
We're all for it.
Absolutely.
But it will be interesting because I'm on the board at Mount Dora Christian High School and lower school. I'm on the board at Harding University, and enrollment is kind of going down anyway because for several reasons. One reason, there's just less. I think there's less of a cohort of people coming through for the pool of people. But there's also there was already kind of this idea of, is it really worth going to college and paying that much money to get the college education?
Right.
Well, we're going to find out. You can get it online and get the education, but you're not getting what?
Right.
You're not getting the experience. You're not getting that growing up, if you want to call it, where you leave home and you go to this place and you begin to mature and grow up. You're going to miss that. But I don't think people are going to want to pay. I see the University of California is going to do online for the fall. I don't think people are going to want to pay $40,000-$50,000 a year for online classes in tuition.
Right.
I mean, so something's got to give.
Right.
And as typical with organizations like that, you don't hear anyone talking about, hey, I guess we need to lower the prices here to get people to come. They want to keep the tuition the same, and it's going to be rough. I saw an article. I saw that the financial aid applications by high school seniors is significantly down.
Right.
So that may be some harbinger of there's just not that many people going to come in the fall.
Right.
And so, our question we're throwing out right now is, if you had kids attending college, would you kind of hold them back for the fall to see what's happening? Because you're talking about that second wave. Do you just keep them home and let them go do something else or get a job or do something like that before you go, and see how things are going before you send them off to school in this situation? And if you do send them off to school, what kind of campus experience is it going to be?
I think that's something we really haven't discussed, or I've even heard discussed, is, if you do go back in the fall, what those changes will be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, my son, he goes to Lipscomb, and he did the online to finish out the school, but you're right. He really misses the interaction, and really the thing I think you miss the most is the thing that is at stake here, the social aspect. Now, the big question here, Joe, because college doesn't affect just our kids. You're a Florida State fan. I'm an Alabama fan. You know, is this going to affect college football? That's the real question.
Well, apparently.
Apparently, yes. Apparently, it is.
Well, I mean that, once again, if we're like you're saying, really this whole everything we're talking about has to do with social interaction and relationships and getting together as a group and a gang and doing things together. And now we can't do that.
Right.
And so all these things that are happening out of this, if it ends up putting us really into individual boxes around here and we can't really interact, it's not a good thing.
Right.
And I mean, we hate to say it, but we know it's true. Part of the college experience for most people is the college football, college basketball, the sports component of it that you go and you spectate at and you follow. And if if you can't do that, that's a lot of experience, college experience that you're missing.
Right.
So that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough. And I don't know. I mean, the NFL's, they're thinking they're going to have a regular season and start on this time, and they may be able to do that, and the college football may be able to do that. I'm just not, I don't know. I think the university system in California and the Pac-12, they're thinking they're going to have their football season in the spring.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Alabama's supposed to open up with University of Southern California, and there's been talk that Alabama's already talking to another college that could replace them if this falls through. So, it does. It's going to affect a lot of different.
Well, it's hard to justify a football team playing when no kids are allowed on campus.
Right.
I mean,
Right. I just want sports on TV right
Yeah.
now. I'll just be honest with you.
Well, the good thing though, maybe we'll dial back on the importance of college sports a little bit and get a little more reasonable about that.
Right.
And we'll get a little more serious about some other things. The other thing I think might be interesting, Tracy, which is interesting for us, I think, because we homeschool. We did homeschool, and you're homeschooling right now, is whether some folks may find or realize we can homeschool our kids.
Right.
We can have them right here and get the benefits of homeschooling, which there's a whole lot of good benefits of homeschooling, which we could talk about maybe sometime. That would be an interesting topic.
Yeah.
About that. But so some people may realize that as far as that's concerned. But once again, you're getting around to we're in this virus thing that is keeping us apart, and I have a feeling. My feeling is that once it's all over, we really want to get back together.
Yes.
I think we're missing those things that we do that we do together.
Yes.
And of course you're going to talk about that, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah.
In your lesson about belong, but we're gonna miss that.
Yeah.
We're missing that, and we want to get back to that.
Well, and I think when I think of church, I think a lot about what we just talked about with our kids in college. They can do schooling online, but they don't really like it. What they're missing is that social, really kind of a community, family. Both of our kids go to Christian colleges, and it's kind of a smaller community. And, with churches, we can do this online thing all day long, but the fact of the matter is we're missing a really important component of what this is all about. So, yes.
Exactly.
I think you're right.
And and you sometimes you think I mean you and Peyton have done a great job with the online worship experience on Sunday morning. Really good. Everyone likes it. It's well put together and all that. And it is kind of nice. You get up when you want to get up.
Right.
And you watch the online experience when you want to watch the online experience, and it's a good thing. But at the end of the day, you still wish you could have seen XYZ. Yeah. The people you would want to have seen. You want to interact with them. You want to see them there. even if you're not even talking to them, but you see them across the way, and you go, yeah, it's good to see so and so.
Well, that's one of the reasons a lot of churches have the preacher up there and they're just preaching, and that's fine. That's one of the reasons we do this around a table in our worship experience, and we've tried to have different people around the table, just for our people maybe to have more of a sense of seeing some folks they haven't seen, and just maybe a little more normalcy about it. But even that it doesn't fill that void, I think, that you feel.
Right.
Well, what about the government?
What about the government?
Well, listen, I'm letting you handle this, not me. So what do you see with the government?
That's probably another whole topic that we could do one night on what's going to change in the government. But once again, I think this is kind of an unknown thing. I mean, how much more money can the government spend on this?
Right.
I mean, people. I mean, there's a lot of people think there's just unlimited money, and the government can print money and do that, but that's not wise. And you have to be careful of people who want to take advantage of this situation to kind of push their own agenda that's unrelated to the virus. So you got to be careful about that. But I don't know where you're going to go, or where the government's going to end up at the end of the day, because once again, we're not really sure, how fast are we going to come out of this? How fast is the economy going to recover? Who's going to really need some help? And the government's the only people, only entity that can really do that. And can we actually sit down and think logically and rationally about the best way to stimulate and get people back? Because we already see that, they sent this money to the workers that are furloughed, and they're now making more money than they did when they were working, so they don't want to go back to work until that runs out. So that that's not a good incentive.
Right.
I think it's also interesting that the borders are back. All of a sudden every country is like, we got our borders and we don't want anybody coming in right now.
Well, it's funny you say that, because Noah, my middle son, he's been working in Montana.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go into Canada, while he's up there, but he's like, I don't think they're letting anybody in.
No.
Well, the Canadians are keeping us out.
They are. I thought Canadians were nice people.
I know. They don't want our stuff, I guess.
Well, I heard the Toronto Blue Jays were going to have to be based in Dunedin because they can't be in Canada and keep going back and forth if they're going to play a season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard that. Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, the other interesting thing that's going to change immediately is voting.
Yeah, that's a big debate right
voting,
now. Right?
I mean, in California just did a little election for a House seat that was open and vacant, totally by mail. I mean, you could show up at the polls, but they sent a ballot to everybody by mail. Came back in, apparently went well. Voting by mail obviously increases the chance for some fraudulent activity, but that's you're seeing that coming too. The voting by mail, and you have each side. Is that a plus or a minus for the Democrats or the Republicans? Well, the Republican won that one. So, and the Republicans are normally like, we don't need voting by mail. So they may change their mind now and say we need voting by mail. But it's once again, it's something that you kind of, I think this is going to happen this way, and it turns out happening a different way.
Right.
So you're going to see that happening. And how nice is it, everybody, that this presidential election campaign, we haven't had to hear much about it at all.
No debates. No, I mean, there's some commercials coming out, but
here's the thing: I would be for the lockdown until the end of till the November election date if it could continue like this, and we don't have to hear anybody campaigning on anything.
Right.
Joe Biden can stay in the basement, and President Trump can continue whatever he's doing.
Right.
At the White House, and they can all wear masks and not talk.
There we go.
And if we could just get them off Twitter, we'd be good.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So a lot of changes that we're seeing.
Yes.
As I said in the beginning, we really don't. I don't think we have an idea really how these changes are. I mean, we can talk about it. This is what this is. This is really a discussion. It's not. This is not going to be based on facts. Some of these things may actually come true, but for the most part, we know where we are. And there's still too much in the air as to what this is going to do next. A lot of nobody trusts anybody else's information, so it's hard for us to really be able to read what's coming up. But it's a good topic. It's something I think it's on people's mind, and so glad you discussed it.
And no matter how everything goes, we are looking forward to everybody being back here in this building in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Yes. That's
the
most important
just
thing.
continue to pray that the health situation stays in a good direction, so that we can get back together and be together as a church family.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So next week, and do want to point out, we talked about this because we asked a couple weeks ago for people to kind of send in topics they'd like us to talk about, and this was specifically one of the topics that someone asked about. Good topic, and we'd love to hear anything else you'd like us to, and I wouldn't say pontificate on, because we're not pontificators.
Well, I'm gonna need a dictionary before I agree with you.
You can look that up. You can look that up. We don't know much of anything, but at least we have fun talking about it.
Absolutely.
So next week, next Thursday, 7 p.m. If anybody has any good things they'd like us to talk about, we'll certainly try to address them. And we've got several of them lined up from the comments we've got previously. So have a great evening, and we'll see you next week on More Wild Talk.